Hello respected viewers, I'm George from Ireland. Now behind me is Balliol College, Oxford. So I'm on Broad Street in Oxford, United Kingdom. So Balliol is one of the 39 colleges which make up Oxford University. It's a federal system, if you will, so the colleges are like the states within the federation, which is the university. So Balliol is arguably the oldest college in Oxford University, founded in 1264. Though that is disputed by Univ, founded in 1249, and indeed in Merton. I can't remember Merton's putative foundation date. You might say, well, if Univ was founded in 1249, how can this one possibly be older in 1264? I suppose it somewhat depends on how you define a college. I might say, well, isn't that straightforward? Well, it's not straightforward, and they've never existed before. Okay, so Oxford University is arguably the second oldest extant university in the world. This existed continuously because something like the University of Paris was briefly closed in the late 18th century. Otherwise, it's older than this one. Bologna being the oldest of all, because it's been recorded there was teaching of adults in this at Oxford University since 1096. Although Oxford University, that particular name, wasn't established till rather later, when King Henry II banned English students from going to the University of Paris, and there were Irish students here almost from the beginning. Anyway, the Balliol family was a noble house which owned estates on either side of Hadrian's Wall. And so they set up this college. It retained strong links to North Britain, and indeed there was a special scholarship from those who already had a degree from the University of Glasgow to come here, and that's still going. I think they come here as postgraduates. Or they could do a second undergraduate degree, I suppose. So a scion of that family, the Balliol family, John Balliol, he later became King of Scots, because the Balliol family, they were related to the Scots royal family. And that John Balliol, the son of the founder of this college, he was known as the Tomb Tabard, as in the empty coat, by the Scots. He'd been selected by King Edward I of England to be King of Scots, is because when Margaret, the Maid of Norway, as in the 6-year-old Queen of Scots, who was born in Norway, sailed back to Scotland to take over the kingdom after her grandfather's death, and she died, I think, in the Orkney Isles before reaching the Scots mainland. Orkney was actually belonged to Norway at the time, not Scotland. So it was unclear who should be the next king. There were several claimants, and it wasn't necessarily primogeniture. And to prevent bloodshed, the Scots claimants, they decided that King Edward I of England would choose the new king, and that's why he picked John Balliol, possibly because he calculated that Balliol was someone who would do his bidding. Anyway, so more about this college here. So it stands here on Broad Street, and you can guess why it's called Broad Street. I don't think it always was on this site, though. And it was known for mass-producing liberal left politicians in the early 20th century. I'm just trying to think of some examples. Was it Richard Crossman and Tony Crosland, or Dennis Healey? Then Sir Edward Heath. Okay, he was a conservative, one of the most left-wing conservatives around. I remember my last term, AUCA, the Oxford University Conservative Association, they held their termly dinner, and the guest of honour was Edward Heath. They asked the former Prime Minister, would he come and be their guest of honour and address them, and he said yes. So what a coup. There are only about 5 living former Prime Ministers at the time, and he said yes, and it was there in Balliol Hall, as in their dining hall. And I could have gone, but I loathed him for various reasons, so I said no. I now kick myself, I should have done it. Plus it was £35. That was a lot of money to me at the time. Anyway, so Balliol was really put on the map as a very prominent college in the late 19th century when it got a very distinguished master, because the head of house is called the master of the college, was put named Benjamin Jowett. And Jowett, like virtually all Oxford dons of the 1870s, was a Church of England clergyman. And there was a lot of Balliol rhymes were composed about this time. There's a bit of doggerel about Jowett, saying, I'm Benjamin Jowett, I'm the master of this college. I don't know. There's nothing that I don't know it. What I don't know isn't knowledge. And Jowett, he's buried not so far away, and indeed there's a street named in his honour, Jowett Walk. So far as I can tell, he's the only head of house of any college here to have a street named in his honour. So that's Jowett, and was known for producing a lot of leading colonial civil servants. It was a special course people could do there for 2 years to prepare them to be functionaries overseas in the colonies. And one of the less illustrious alumni of this college is Sir Michael O'Dwyer, who was governor of Punjab in 1919 at the time of the Amritsar massacre. There was a hymn composed for Balliol men now in Africa, because some of them went to be colonial civil servants there. Richard Dawkins formerly held the chair of the Public Understanding of Science at Oxford University. He went here and so on. And they had a friendly rivalry with Trinity, which is the college just over the wall. And I know someone long dead now, Bill Sykes, who was at Balliol in the early 60s and said there was a song they used to sing called Gundawali, and also saying, thank God they're not a Trinity man. So Balliol obviously goes further back. It's got a courtyard in there, they've got a chapel like everywhere else. I've been into the library a few times, yeah, it was the place to go. I'm just trying to think if any more contemporary politicians went there. Well, Ed Balls, but he's not very prominent anymore. Oh yeah, Boris Johnson went there, how could I forget? Not that he's a left-winger. All right, and then Trinity is here, where this blue gate begins. So Balliol really has seen it all. So, and then what else has happened right here? Well, I'll talk about the Oxford Martyrs, who were burnt to death, and what was in the town ditch here in 1555 is the time that Mary Tudor took over, Bloody Mary, as Protestants called her, because the English Reformation had happened in the 1830s. Henry VIII had died, his son Edward VI ruled for a few years, and then there was Lady Jane Grey, the 9 Days Queen, pushed out by her cousin Mary Tudor. So Mary Tudor, the daughter of Catherine of Aragon, was a passionate Catholic and decided she was going to restore Catholicism for various reasons, partly out of personal conviction, but also the Roman Catholic Church took her side, saying that she was legitimate, her parents' marriage was proper, therefore she was conceived and born within holy matrimony, and she was the rightful monarch. So Thomas Cranmer was someone she really was aggrieved at. Cranmer had been Archbishop of Canterbury, had been the person who declared that her marriage to her mother's marriage to Henry VIII was annulled. Therefore, that meant that Mary Tudor was conceived in bastardy and had no right to inherit the crown. So Thomas Cranmer, he was charged with heresy. He recanted Anglicanism, said, I'll be a Roman Catholic, but that was not enough to save him. A deathbed conversion. No. Nevertheless, he was sentenced to death for his earlier crimes, along with two others, Hugh Latimer, who was the Bishop of Worcester, and Nicholas Ridley, who was the Bishop of London. And they weren't all burnt the same day. The same year actually. Was it Cranmer was burnt a year later? There's a play about it called Play the Man, because I think it was Hugh Latimer who said, be of good comfort, Master Ridley, and play the man, for we shall, by God's grace, this day light a flame in England such as shall never be put out. Well, what's that in more contemporary English? Something like, so be brave and people will always remember us and our cause will win in the end, which is more or less what happened, because Mary Tudor, she died of ovarian cancer in 1558, and then her half-sister Elizabeth came back and restored the Church of England. So that play the Man, was actually performed here in this spot, and that cross is supposed to mark where they were actually burnt to death. Of course, it's the smoke will kill you long before the fire will consume your flesh. And they were tried in St Mary's, the University Church. They were that church at Northgate Tower that was used as a prison, and they were held there till they were executed. So Mary Tudor had brought that back, killed roughly 500 Anglicans and dissenting Protestants over her 5-year reign. Obviously Elizabeth I killed a similar number of people for being Catholics or for being hardline Protestants as opposed to Anglicans, but that was over 45 years, not 5 years. So that's just a little bit about Balliol. I wish I could get inside to show you. They've cleaned up the stone a lot, so a lot of the undergraduates, postgraduates live in there, a few lecture rooms, and they used to have a little pet turtle in their garden. They've got obviously JCR, junior common room, and MCR, middle common room for postgraduates. There are loads more postgraduates here than when I was here. It's almost 50% postgraduate. Not that I was at Balliol, but the university as a whole. There are some graduate-only colleges, but this one takes undergraduates and postgraduates. And obviously there's the SER, senior common room for the dons. The lecturers and professors are known as dons. That's like a slang word, but it's completely acceptable. It's not remotely discourteous. That's enough for me. Toodaloo, everyone.